All right, if you are looking to run ads for your business, whether you're running a service-based business or something like an e-com store, and you're wondering whether you should be doing Facebook ads or Google ads in 2023, in this video, I'm going to cover which one I think you should be using depending on the different circumstances and what are the benefits and negatives of each. So if we go into here, first I'm going to cover Facebook ads. So Facebook ads, the way I see it is that it's great for when people don't know about what you offer and are not already looking for it. So it's something that they're not actively searching for online or, going out of their way to try and find it. They're not aware that it exists, and you want to try and get in front of them and show them, that you have this thing to offer. So the pros of Facebook are that you can show people who may not know to look for what you are offering, whether that's a product or a service. It's also a good thing that you can run ads on Instagram through the Facebook platform, which is a good positive because Instagram is actually very popular now. And if you want to run the ads, you can do it through the Facebook platform and target Instagram and use all the audience settings and so on. So at this point, Instagram is probably or very likely more popular than Facebook. So it's a great platform for many different businesses who are offering, various products and services. Hey guys, real quick, if you run a service company and you'd like to add at least $100,000 to $300,000 per year in new business, guaranteed or you don't pay, just hit the link below to book a call with us and we'll show you exactly how we'll do that for you. Back to the video. Now, Facebook does come with what I believe are a large list of cons. So number one is tracking is an issue and it's complicated to set up. So you used to be able to track fairly easily with the Google Facebook Pixel. You could set up conversions and optimize for conversions. But then a bunch of things have happened in the last couple of years. Apple did their update, which kind of screwed all that up. And then a few other things, which now just makes setting up the conversions extremely complicated. And they're nowhere near as accurate as they used to, which obviously greatly impacts the performance of the Facebook ads. Now, another major issue, which I think is one of the biggest problems with Facebook, is that they randomly ban your account all the time. Every single person who has ever run Facebook ads will have had at least one account banned at some point, and it is a massive pain in the ass. Like, their support sucks. It's a nightmare, honestly, to deal with it, and it's getting worse and worse with this. And so the problem with this is it almost makes it unworthwhile simply because it's just a headache to deal with the account banning consistently. So that's something I really think you should keep in mind if you're considering Facebook. You will deal with it eventually if you're on there long enough. So be prepared for that. Now, another issue is that the type of leads that you get from Facebook tend to be lower quality because there's a lot of people who are just tire kickers or they're not really, target market or whatever. And so they'll fill out the form or try and get in contact with you, send you an email, but it's not going to turn into actual business for you. And so that's something you need to keep in mind. Like, just because you're getting a lot of clicks for cheap doesn't mean that those clicks are actually going to go anywhere. Now, the next one is showing to people who may or may not be interested. So while that's a positive, so you can get in front of people who might not know, the negative side of that is that you are likely to show to a lot of people who are not interested in what you're offering. And the problem is you're paying per impression, not per click, which means that every time your ad is shown to somebody, whether they're actually interested or not, you're going to pay for that. And so what you're going to find is that a lot of the time with Facebook, you're paying for a lot of impressions and you're just getting absolutely no return because the audience is not quite right or whatever the case may be. And so that's something you need to keep in mind. Facebook in general is actually quite complicated to set up and manage. There's a lot of factors that go into it. There's a lot of things that it will just stop working or it just doesn't work for some reason. You really need to know what you're doing to figure out why that is and how to solve it. So for people who are new to running ads, it can be extremely complicated and disheartening when they set up their account, they run it, and they just get no results and they have no idea why. So that's also another thing you need to keep in mind. Now, another thing is you usually need to test many different audiences to find one that actually works. So it's quite complicated. Like, you have to throw a lot of money at testing out, different types of people, different demographics, and so on to try and see which ones actually are profitable in terms of running the ads and getting them to buy from you. The other big problem is that you need to constantly update your ads in order for them to bring the results and not burn out. So what happens is the lifetime of a Facebook ad is typically quite short. You can get ads that can run for a long time and they work, but that's getting less and less as time goes on. simply because when your ad shows to people, they've already seen it, and then they develop like a filter as they're scrolling through their feed, and so they'll no longer click on your ad. And so the problem is you need to keep updating your images and what they call creatives, which is just images, videos, the text, and so on. You need to keep updating those things so that people still actually notice your ad and are likely to click on it. And you're going to find that this is a common thing that occurs when you run an ad. Very quickly, it just goes, it just burns out, and you stop getting impressions or you stop getting clicks, and you just basically get nothing from it anymore. So the other thing is Facebook as a platform is not what it once was. It used to be extremely popular, but as we all know, it's not really the main thing anymore. Instagram is far more popular. So the good thing is you can advertise on Instagram through the Facebook Ads Manager. However, Facebook itself is not really what it used to be. So you typically don't see the results that you used to get from Facebook, a couple of years ago when it was once a very popular platform for running ads on. And the other thing is the CPM costs are going up, which means you're paying more for showing your ad and the impressions you get on them. As time goes on, these are getting more and more expensive, which is basically pricing out a lot of businesses because it's just simply not profitable enough to run ads anymore at the cost that they are with the quality of leads that they're getting. So those are the pros and cons of Facebook. Now we'll go into Google Ads. So Google Ads is one of the other major players when you're looking at running online ads. And how I look at Google Ads is it is great for when people already know of the thing you're offering and they're already looking for it, and you just need to get in front of them. So typically this means if you're offering any kind of service that people would be looking for, or selling any kind of product that people are specifically looking to buy, as long as there's enough search volume on Google, you can throw up your ad and you can get people to your website. So the benefit of this is that it's showing to people who are looking already for what you do. And you can see here, that's my number one on the list of pros. These are already people who want to buy what it is you're selling. So as long as you go for the right keywords, you can show up to people who are specifically looking for what you want. So they're a hotter audience who are ready to buy something. They just need to decide which one they want to buy. So you just need to convince them that it's you, basically. So that already puts you a few steps forward compared to Facebook, where they might not even know what it is, and you basically have to convince them on it and then convince them on you. So you're a few steps behind. Google Ads is also much easier for beginners to learn. It's easier as a platform to set up, to get started, to make the ads, to manage it, everything. It's just much, much easier overall. So in terms of learning curve, Google Ads is way easier to go with that one. You rarely ever have to worry about your account randomly getting banned. I personally have never had this issue with Google, but I've had this issue several times with Facebook. Google doesn't just ban your account randomly, and unlike Facebook, they usually give you a couple of warnings if you're doing something wrong, or let's say you've made an ad that's not really according to the guidelines. They will disapprove the ad first and give you a chance to fix it, whereas a lot of the time Facebook just flat out bans your account with no warning. So it's very rare. It does happen, but it's very rare that you have banning issues with Google accounts. And if it truly was an error, you can usually get the account back, which is not exactly the same thing for Facebook. So the other thing with Google is that once you hit an ad that is working and you're getting results from, you can typically leave that ad running for months, sometimes even years, and it will still work and it will still bring results. It won't burn out like the Facebook ads. The Google ads will typically just keep going for a long, long time, and you can just keep running them. Now, it is still a good idea to optimize them to try and improve that ad further, to increase the conversion rate and the click-through rate so you get a better return for your ad spend. But it'll typically keep running once you hit something well for a long time. The other thing is you don't need to make a bunch of videos or images for Google ads, specifically because they're search ads, and in this case, it's mainly just text. Yes, you can include some images and things like that as extensions and assets. However, typically speaking, on Google search ads, you're mainly focusing on the text, and so therefore you don't need to worry about making images, videos, and so on, which can really complicate the process, and need to constantly rotate them like you do on Facebook. So now the cons of Google ads, there's, in my opinion, very few cons, but there are a couple. The problem is if people don't know to look for what you're offering, then you can't get in front of them with Google search ads. That's the one big downside of the platform. Now, there are ways to do that. You can use Google display advertising, which typically, there's a reason why people use Facebook over Google display advertising. It's not the best platform for something like that. However, they do have other options like YouTube ads and things like that, which people have a lot of success on. So that is a potential option you could use. Now, another thing is that Google ads tend to cost a bit more per click than, let's say, something like Facebook. So what the problem with that is that it can be unprofitable for some niches if the cost to acquire these clicks is a lot more than the profit they get from what they're selling. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. So that's just something to keep in mind. Those are basically the only two negatives I can think of when it comes to Google ads. So now, which one should you use for your business if you are looking at running ads? So this is largely going to depend on what you're actually selling. However, typically speaking, Google ads is usually the better option to start with, in my opinion. The exception to this rule, like I already mentioned, is that if people do not know what you're actually offering, then you're going to have to get in front of them some other way. Google search ads is not going to be the best option simply because there's nobody looking for it. Now, there's a way you can find this out before you start running the ads as to whether people are actually looking for what you do and whether Google is going to be a good option. So I'm going to go through that now, and I'm actually going to show you how to look up whether people are actually looking for what you're offering and how to calculate if it's actually going to be profitable. So that's going to quickly tell you whether you should be running Google ads or not. So if we go into ads.google.com, this is the Google Ads platform, and you can go into the keyword planner. I'll show you how to do that now. And then basically what that does is you can see how many searches, whatever keywords you're looking at advertising for, actually get every month. So you can decide whether it's worthwhile running and what kind of profit you're going to make from that. So we'll go into there quickly, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So this is the keyword planner. If you log into your Google Ads account, you can access this simply by going to Tools and Settings and going to Keyword Planner up here. And basically, what you do is you would click here. Actually, I'm going to start from the beginning so I can show you what it looks like because the interface is slightly different. At the beginning, it gives you these options. I typically just go to Discover New Keywords and just go straight here. And now it's going to give you the keywords you want to enter and the location you want to run them for. So I was using the example that I set up for family lawyers. So I'm just going to do that one again. So I'll just go family lawyer, and I'm going to set it to United States. To give you an example of what it looks like when you get a decent amount of search volume. So this is how you would do this. You go there and you click save, and now you just hit get results. And now Google is going to give you your keyword and all the keywords it thinks are related to your keyword and how many searches they're getting every month, as well as how much you can expect to pay for a click on these keywords. So you can see here for family lawyer across whole of the United States is getting between 10,000 to 100,000 average monthly searches, which is huge. So this is one of the reasons why Google Ads works so well for lawyers, is because people are actively searching for them. And if you go to divorce attorneys, this gets even more. This gets 100,000 to 1 million searches every month across America, which is massive. So this alone, just those two keywords alone, basically tells you that this is worth running ads for. Now, obviously, if you're not servicing whole United States or wherever, and you're just servicing a particular city, you would throw that in there. And so let's say, for instance, we wanted to change this and do Los Angeles. This would give you the same thing. So you can see here up to 1,000 people are searching just that keyword, and then you can go up to 1,000, search that, so by the time you add all of these keywords together into a campaign, you're going to get, 10,000 plus searches a month, which is an adequate amount to make it worthwhile running these ads. So there are definitely people looking for family and divorce lawyers in Los Angeles and across America. Now, what happens if you don't get enough search volume? What does that look like? So I've thrown in something ridiculous here just to give you an example. Boeing 747 parts. Let's say you sell Boeing 747 parts, right? First of all, Google doesn't even see many related searches, although I'm going to click this one just to see in a second. But you can see here across the whole United States, there maybe is up to 100 searches a month. So with luck, you might get 10 clicks. Maybe one of those will convert into a lead, let's say. So that is not worthwhile running Google Ads for, simply because that is just such a low search volume that it's just, you're not going to get enough traffic to your website to make it profitable or worthwhile doing. So in this case, you would need to find a different traffic source to run Google Ads, to run ads for. Now, for instance, you get Boeing parts here. This is obviously very specific. However, across the United States, they still only get 1,000 searches a month. So at this point, you would have to decide whether that's worthwhile and whether this intent of this search keyword is also important. That's another thing to consider. Are these people actually looking to buy something, or are they like looking for information? So, but yeah, with such a low search volume, this is something that you could test out, but honestly, it probably wouldn't work, or you wouldn't get enough traffic unless one sale was worth like $1 million to you. Then maybe it'll be worthwhile. So that's something to consider. So now that's how you decide whether you get enough search volume. Now the question is it going to be profitable to run the ads for whatever it is that you're selling? So you can calculate that as well based on some information. So here's how you do that, right? So the first thing you need to figure out is what is the expected conversion rate on your website and how much a customer is actually worth to you. So now with the conversion rate, it's going to be tricky to know until you've actually run ads to your website. However, there are typical averages for different type of businesses. So for service-based businesses, in my experience, when I'm running ads for them, it's typically in the range of 10 to 20% per lead. So 10 to 20% of people who land on the website are likely to contact them and want to either use their service or want more information. That's on the high end. You can usually expect around 5%. If it's below 5%, then it's very low. So something is wrong there, usually with either the type of keyword you're bidding on, or there's discongruency with the ad and the landing page, or the landing page is just not very good. But let's say for a service business, it should be at a minimum of 5%. For e-com stores, it's typically somewhere in the 1% range, maybe 3% on the high end for a purchase, which is slightly different to a lead. So you need to figure out what this average is, or what this number is likely to be for your type of product or service, what the industry average is, and then you can make this rough calculation. So what you need to do is I use the low end of this calculation to just be very, very safe, to make sure, like in worst case scenario, are we at least going to break even or make a little bit of money? So let's say, for instance, we're going to try to calculate for the family lawyers, is it going to be profitable to run their Google Ads campaign? So if we go back into the keyword planner and we go family lawyer here, you can see here, if you scroll to the right, how much it's likely to cost you to get on page 1. So now you can usually throw the estimate somewhere in between these two numbers, because this is top of the page 1 bid, low range and high range. So the least, Google thinks the least amount you're going to have to pay to get to top of page 1 is $17. The highest is $51 for that specific keyword. So if you scroll down the list and see they're all within that range, you can kind of guess that you're going to be somewhere in there to try and get to top of page 1. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get clicks for cheaper than this. You could show like in a lower position or on page 2 even sometimes, and that can even get you results. But typically, like I said, it's best to calculate the worst case scenario and then see how close you are. So if we go back to this, you can see it's between $17 and $50. So what I'm going to do is use $25 for this calculation, and I'm going to show you how we do it. So if the average client to a family law firm is worth $5,000 to them, that's probably on the low end, especially if you're talking something like divorce. But let's just say it's worth $5,000 to them, and the cost per click is roughly $25 a click. If they have a low conversion rate of 5%, which would be the bare minimum you really want from Google Ads, then it's going to cost them $500 per lead. So what you want to do in this case is calculate how much is 100 clicks going to cost you, which in this case would be $2,500. And if your conversion rate is 5%, you should be getting around 5 leads for that $2,500, which means that your average cost per lead is $500. That's how you calculate that. So now, what you need to know is how many of these leads are likely to turn into customers on average. So if on average 1 in 3 of these leads actually turns into a client for this law firm, that means that it's costing them $1,500 to acquire a client, which on average is worth $5,000 to them. So this is a profitable campaign in basically the worst case scenario. So that's how you calculate that. So what this means is if we can bump the conversion rate up to 10% or higher to double this, now it's costing them $750 to acquire a $5,000 client, which is, quite profitable. And if you could lower that cost and get that conversion rate up even more, then it's going to be even more profitable. So that's how you would calculate that and decide whether it's actually worth running them. Now, I'll just give you another example of the opposite end of that scale. So let's say you've got an e-com store and it's selling a product that they make $20 of profit on. So if the cost per click for them is $1 and their conversion rate is 1%, that means they need to spend $100 to make one sale. And so in this case, the problem is they are paying $100 to make one sale and the profit is $20. That is not profitable at all by a scale of like 5 times, right? They need 5 sales to make up that $100 profit just to break even, basically. So the problem with this is that is so far off being profitable that the chances of you making that campaign actually work is very, very unlikely. And so therefore, Google Ads is probably not the best option in this case, because the chances of it being profitable are actually slim to none. So if you're close to break even in a worst case scenario, then it's probably likely that you can make it work, especially if you know what you're doing and you know how to optimize the account. Let's say you can double the result. Now you're getting like a 2-to-1 return. That's okay. It'd be better if you had a bit more of room there, but it depends on the industry and your specific situation. But if it's something like 5 times as much it's costing you to get a sale, when of how much profit you're making, then it's not going to. There's basically no way you'd make that work. So you'd have to look at some other option in that particular case. So if there are no or very few searches on Google, or if it's not going to be profitable, like this e-com store example I just gave you, then testing Facebook ads would probably be the way to go, unless you want to try something like TikTok, which is working well for a lot of people at the moment. So that's another option you could use. So I hope that helped you to decide which one you should use for your business and how you can see if Google is going to work for you specifically. If you have any questions, or you'd like me to tell you whether Facebook or Google ads are a good idea for your specific business, just post that in the comments below. I'll have a look at the business and the situation. I'll let you know if it's a good idea. Catch you on the next one.